DSP, darksydephil, king of hate. Go, you can use different name to describe good old Phil, right? Good old Phil, good Philly Phil. Why am I talking about Phil? Well, I want to talk about him because I think it's been a very long time since I even covered the guy, but also because I think that when it's coming to redemption arcs, I feel like oops, sorry for that. I feel like redemption arcs are something that a lot of people really do enjoy watching. Now, obviously, redemption arcs are something you find mostly things like in TV shows, manga, anime, wrestling, a bunch of other things. A lot of media that most people do consume, even in real life, even if they're more propped up. And I could go on about the idea of redemption arc, mainly with locales, but this isn't really about that too much, but this is more about Phil. I just want to get into that because I want to at least, for those who don't know what a redemption arc is, or at least what I'm coming from, is this is what I'm trying to apply. That DSP has failed miserably in his attempt to become redeemable. Now, why is that? Or really, let's kind of get into it a little bit first. So to give you some history about darksydephil, he's been on the internet for more than a decade, right? Almost close to 20 years probably now. He was originally called the King of Hate for obvious reasons. Most people just love to hate him. He was trying to be very actively hated, especially within the fighting community. And if you're not very aware of what it's like to be in the whole fighting community, I'm not, but I have friends who are, and they have told me that it's extremely aggressive. And it makes sense. Like, people don't like to lose in the fighting game. It's just how that is. DSP kind of got fame because he was one of the few people who played it. I think it was like '05 or '06. I can't remember. It's literally almost 20 years. But he won this fighting game because of most of the people didn't practice playing this one certain version of Street Fighter, so that's how he won. A little bit of that. And then later on, obviously, the hate started to become more and more obvious because he was a troller. And also just the general attitude is why people didn't like him a lot, especially former friend and later on, well, not former friend, but former fans and friends, obviously, that later became his detractor, right? DSP probably has one of, if not the biggest detractor community out there, probably more famous than he himself, which is very funny, right? And they probably are making more money than DSP as we speak, right? Like Doodle, for instance, was making quite a bit of money just by A-logging DSP, right? And I think he was probably getting more viewership than DSP at some point, which is very funny when you think about it. Mostly because DSP, if you ever try to watch a lot of his streams in like long bursts, it's very boring. Just a lot of okay. And I'm not bad with my own stream, but he failed his redemption arc miserably, mostly because he was just lazy. Didn't really try to improve what he was trying to do. And I think the way he was handling things was just one mishap after the other, right? And his whole redemption arc kind of started with Kinocasino, which I think they more or less abandoned him. I think they don't work with each other, or at least they're not openly working with each other as much anymore. Which is very funny because they were hyping him up. They were, giving him the credibility. At least maybe some people thought it was a joke, but I think in some regard it was. And as time went on, right, with the whole Kinocasino DSP arc, but I think I will talk about that in a different video. In short, it wasn't long, but it was at least the first attempt for Phil to do something better, and at least try to make his content better, and at least be more open and honest, which he ended up doing. But I think because he was being too open and too honest, it just resulted in just one thing leading after the other that backfired. And it's been almost like what? No, I wouldn't say 6 months, but it's been a couple months since the beginning of his redemption arc, and it hasn't gone anywhere. It just hasn't gone anywhere. Again, his laziness to not actually try to do anything, especially trying to get people onto his show, has failed. Like, he got Keemstar. Keemstar was his first guest, which is probably, I think, was one of his successful guests that worked out great. Then after Keem, it was Stuttering Craig from Side Scroller, and that was a shit show. I would have just been Phil and taken the L and be like, yeah, you were right. I should have not done that. I did that because I didn't want to prove anybody right. And if he would have shown that he was willing to take the L, I think he would have been liked more. That he, accepting your loss as it is and being able to walk away and stand up, or stand up and walk away. That's what I'm referring to. Mix that up. And then obviously he had Nolan from Kiwi Farm, and that was just, it wasn't a shit show, but it was more like he was trying to beg him to take down his section of Kiwi Farm down, which obviously didn't work. And then there was a guy who did the documentary. I can't think of his name offhand, but he was Jules King. June King actually kind of confronted him and like stood in ground and wrangled Phil in. And after that, it just went nowhere. Obviously, he wanted Miss America and he wanted Boogie, he wanted Wings, he wanted other people. But I think mostly because Wings and Boogie were lazy and Miss America was sick, that fell through hard. And I think because of that, because the momentum of him not willing to bring other people onto his show failed. I think RTU would have been great to put on his show. I think Pescator would have been another example, or at least bring in some of his bigger haters and be like, yeah, let's talk about this, and let's see, what's right, what's wrong, and get into it, and like at least from there, learn how to be a better content creator, or at least just learn to make your stream better, learn to accept a lot, and learn to be willing to get help and stop e-begging a lot. But I didn't, and his redemption arc just for a while it was just stagnating after a bit of time, and then it completely just crashed and burned. Now I don't know where he is now, but I think his redemption arc was a failure. Mostly on his end. It was on his end through and through. And I think that's always been an issue with Phil, who is somebody who he's just lazy. He's incompetent. He doesn't know when to take a hint, right? He brags about a lot of things, yet he has nothing to show of it, right? And I think because of that, I think DSP is in his bubble where he could have easily gone out of it and gotten more people. He should have gone on more shows. If I were him, I would have gone on Local Live when the opportunity was there, but that didn't go anywhere. Right? Or go on his haters' stream and confront them, or at least talk to them as human beings. And I think that's the sadness about anything when it comes to redemption, is that eventually most of these things just fail miserably. Or some of the people who are trying to do redemption arcs, either they succeed and they gain their audience or the people trust, or they fail miserably. Or I think in the case of Phil, I think it was succeeding at first, and then it started to fail, and then eventually, rather than just completely, crash and burn, it just stagnated. And I think that's worse than failing, because if you failed, you made an effort. Stagnation is that you're making no effort at all, and you're just letting it plateau, which is probably even worse. And I think that's something we can learn about the failure of DSP, not the failures of DSP, but learn from the stagnation and crumble of DSP redemption arc. Till then, y'all, have a good one, be safe, and God bless as always. Till next time.